And now for the news.
Side Newsroom of the Henrico Citizen. Your hometown news source since 2001. This is the Henrico News Minute with publisher Tom Lapis.
Teachers and parents provide feedback to school board members about plans for the second 9 weeks of school, and Henrico ranks 5th in the state in this category. We'll tell you what it is coming up on today's Henrico News Minute for Wednesday, October 21st, 2020. It's brought to you today by Humana.
And now for the news.
Most of the 50 or so speakers who addressed two Henrico School Board members during a virtual listening session last night urged them not to return students to school in person just yet. Board members Marcy Shea and Christy Kinsella also heard from a handful of speakers who implored them to provide a choice for those who do want their students to go back to class, though. The board is scheduled to vote on Thursday to determine a course of action for the second 9 weeks of school. During last night's event, a number of teachers described their hesitations about returning to the classroom, saying they fear for their own health and that of those close to them. They also worry that added duties will reduce the amount of instructional time they can provide in person, and they don't trust that students will effectively wear their masks and maintain proper distance at all times, among other concerns. Others suggested that with students unable to interact and teachers possibly expected to teach in-person students and virtual students simultaneously, that in-person learning might essentially amount to virtual learning in a classroom setting. Said Verona High School history teacher Jimmy Lincoln, quote, "If we rush back, what are we gaining?" End quote. But a parent said, quote, "We've got to go back. It can be done, and it's being done all over the state," end quote. Read much more of the input from last night's meeting right now at henricocitizen.com by clicking on News and Education. When the school board voted July 23rd to begin the year in full virtual mode for most students during the first 9 weeks, it did so in part because of health concerns about the possible spread of COVID-19, even though case rates in the county itself at the time were relatively stable. On that day, the county was averaging 25 new daily cases of COVID and 7.6 cases per 100,000 residents. But now, a day before the board's decision about what to do for the second 9 weeks, both of those numbers are slightly higher at 29 cases per day and 8.9 cases per 100,000 people. But the county's 7-day positivity percentage has declined significantly from 7.1% July 23rd to just 3.9% as of October 16th. The Virginia Department of Health's burden metric for COVID cases, which breaks the state into a handful of regions and provides snapshot views of how each one is performing in 8 different virus-related metrics, was in the moderate range at 8.9 July 23rd, but now sits in the high range at 12.2. Cases in the region have been increasing for the last 20 days. The mixed messages provided by those metrics and others promise to make the board's vote tomorrow even more challenging, as it weighs not only the potential health risks posed by COVID itself, but also the mental health issues faced by some students and others that have resulted from COVID isolation. The board also will take into account the survey of employees and families that it took earlier this month. The results were released on Monday, but parsing the results of the employees portion of the survey could prove particularly challenging to the board. That's because employees were provided with 6 possible options that they'd consider if school returned in person. They were allowed to select as many as they wanted, but one option that wasn't available, continuing to work virtually without an excuse. As a result, 3/4 of employees who responded said they'd return to school if they were instructed to do so, but 55% also selected one or more options, indicating that they wouldn't return. And in comments submitted by roughly 3,000 of the 4,500 or so employee respondents, most indicated that they had selected the option to return to school grudgingly. The vast majority of comments from employees favored a plan to remain in primarily virtual mode for the second 9 weeks. You can read much more on this topic at henricocitizen.com by clicking News and Education. Meanwhile, 7 additional cases of COVID-19 have been reported in Henrico schools since October 11th, according to the school system. All but one of those cases involved a school employee. 3 of the new cases were reported on Monday at Glen Allen Elementary, Lakeside Elementary, and Rolfe Middle. The other new cases were reported October 15th at Skipwith Elementary and Ridge Elementary, October 16th at Ratcliffe and Seven Pines Elementary. The total number of confirmed cases in the county's public schools since August 12th is now at 42 in 32 different schools. Well, last night, 7th District Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger and challenger Nick Freitas engaged during a candidate forum on VPM. We have coverage of it. You can read that right now on henricocitizen.com. Click on News and then Government. Henrico County maintained its fifth-place ranking among Virginia localities in tourism revenue last year, according to data released recently by the United States Travel Association. The study found that pre-pandemic tourism dollars saw an uptick in 2019 over the previous year in the Richmond region, approaching $2.68 billion in visitor spending, about a 3.2% increase from 2018. In total in Henrico, the amount spent by tourists was just shy of $1 billion at $993.9 million, according to the study. That spending generated state sales tax receipts of $36 million and local tax revenue to the county of more than $30 million, according to the study. Yesterday, Henrico County reported 36 new cases of COVID-19 and the deaths of 3 people in their 70s, as well as 1 new COVID-related hospitalization, according to the Virginia Department of Health. The county's overall death toll attributed to the virus is now 227 people.
Today's Henrico News Minute has been brought to you by Humana. Turning 65 and have questions about Medicare? Humana can help. Call licensed sales agent Eric Jones at 804-253-0056 to learn more.